is going to move a motion in March to call on Australian government to recognise the treatment of Uyghurs as genocide, also to boycott Beijing Olympic Games next year. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, the treatment of the Uyghurs is genocide. It is genocide by definition. They are trying to eradicate the Uyghur people from that part of what they consider to be China. And it is a crime against humanity. And, you know, we've seen a series of these sort of actions, whether it's the brutality we've seen imposed upon the free-loving people of Hong Kong, or the incursions that we've seen in recent times, military incursions, as in fighter jets flying over Taiwan in their airspace, whether it's, you know, the horrific treatment that's meted out to Falun Gong practitioners or Christians in China, and the brutal oppression that comes with all of that. All of this stuff is a crime against humanity, and so there are very good reasons why we should be suspending our participation in the Winter Olympics as well.
So do you think CCP is politicalising the sports events to advance their agenda?
Look, the CCP always tries to advance their agenda using whatever means that it can, and I'm sure they're using the Winter Olympics to try and whitewash the crimes against humanity that are happening under their regime. But there's no whitewashing it. It's there for the world to see. We can see quite clearly what's happening with the treatment of the Uyghurs. I mean, they're basically being put into slavery, put into re-education work camps, forced sterilisation. This stuff is just not tolerable. So they can try and whitewash it with a big sporting event like the Winter Olympics, but it won't be whitewashed.
Right. Since Australia introduced the international independent inquiry about the pandemic, so Australia has been subject to a series of economic sanctions by China. So what message do you think the CCP trying to send to the world?
Well, China's obviously sending a message. Well, I should start again and say that the Chinese Communist Party is sending a message to the rest of the world that do not stand up to us or we'll try and crush you. But the point is that we haven't been crushed here in Australia. In fact, we've grown our economy, even though that there's a pandemic on. The amount that we're sending over to China doesn't seem to have reduced. So despite what the CCP have said, people in China still want Australian products, and you know, but it's what it has done. It's backfired spectacularly on the CCP. There were people in the political scene here in Australia that probably were a little bit worried about speaking too harshly against the CCP beforehand, who have just hardened in terms of their resolve that Australian sovereignty should prevail against threats from foreign nations like China. And so I think that it's backfired spectacularly, and the whole world is now looking at the CCP and saying, this is not how you play the game. You know, if you're playing by the rules with trade, you don't use trade as a political weapon. So people and countries are going to be de-risking themselves of China for that very reason.
Right. The last question. What are your general thoughts on the seminar today?
Look, I think it's a brilliant thing that we've got people from all different sort of backgrounds that have been victimised by the Chinese Communist Party that have come together for a conference here in Canberra. Obviously the Taiwanese, Hong Kong residents, we've got Falun Dafa practitioners, we've got Christians, we've got Uyghurs, we've got Tibetans, and we've just got pro-democracy activists who are Chinese, all here saying the same thing. And they're going to form an alliance, I hope, on the victims of communism. And I think that they're going to get open doors throughout Parliament House in Canberra, and I'll be very glad to sit down and talk with them and work out what we can do to ensure there's no further victims of the Chinese Communist Party.